Hi, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of a Tailor-Made Life podcast, where every conversation is one step closer to designing the life that God has for you. I'm your host, Taylor Renee, and as always, I am so excited to have you here with me. Let's just get right into it, shall we? The last episode, we were discussing work-life balance and what that means in general, right? If you want to hear more about that, go watch the last episode. This week, though, however, took a little curve. The past week, I should say, I had a show in Miami. For you guys who don't know, I live in Orlando, and I travel pretty much within the state of Florida for different tours, different shows or whatnot. So this time last week, I had to go to Miami to settle like a indie pop show or whatever. And, I had a lot riding on it personally. This was my first time in that specific building. So it was just a lot of nuances and a little pressure that I had kind of put on myself because, I had a lot riding on it. And everything was okay. I was settling with a familiar face. So I felt, a sense of comfort, right? And everything was okay until, my tour rep kind of said like, oh, I just feel like we're behind on settlement. And obviously, all eyes go on me, right? I'm the person in charge of settlement. And, my boss's boss is in there. The room kind of got a little quiet, and then everybody reverted their eyes on to me, right? And so I'm like, okay, I kind of laugh it off because in reality, we weren't behind on settlement, right? Like things were at a pretty good pace. Like I kind of had everything under control. We were in a good spot. But none of that mattered, right? When she said that she felt like we were behind on settlement, then that was it, right? The pressure was on. And so immediately, right, my mind went to, emailing, calling, working, right? Figuring out the problem. I had to work under this pressure. Afterwards, things were handled, right? Settlement ended up going really, really well. Like I said, it was a familiar face. I knew the person I was settling with, so things were smooth. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. But in the midst of that moment, right, I was so focused on work. I was so focused on getting the task done that some other things were neglected, right? And so, like I said, afterwards, things were handled, and I got some feedback the next day. I get a call, hey, here are some things that were noted about last night. And, they weren't bad. It wasn't like negative or anything. It just was some things that I could have done better, while working under that pressure. And at first, when I first heard the commentary, I wasn't offended, right? I wasn't bothered. I told myself I wouldn't be upset about feedback, right? And then the more I thought about it, I started to question, like, was it valid? Was I just misunderstood? Was it biased? I'm always the only person of color, the youngest person of color. I'm a woman, you put all three of those things together, it creates room for a lot of stereotypes, a lot of biases, a lot of racial undertones, prejudice perspectives. All of those things can be accounted for with me just existing as a person, right? And so in that moment, I found myself trying to invalidate the feedback. Like I was trying to find a way to make myself feel better, right? Like it's not me, it's them. But in that moment, like in that split second of me being on the phone and hearing that feedback, I had to stand up within myself and say, you know what? Hey, I do have room to grow in that area. I'll take the feedback and I'll work on it, right? Thank you. And it was simple as that. The statement is simple, it's concise, but I want to talk about what it took for me to get to that point because, like I said, all of those questions were in my head. I was like, I don't know if that's really me or not, or I don't know if that feedback is valid, But again, I had to decide whether or not I was going to protect my feelings or if I was going to give myself the room to grow, right? And I chose the latter, thank God. The things that it took in order for me to get to that point, for that moment, right? First things first, I had to put the pride to the side. I had to put my pride aside, right? We know that, first off, God resists the proud, he comforts the humble, right? And when you're in such a prideful state, it makes everything feel like an attack, right? Like you're so easily offended when you're prideful. When your pride is in the way and somebody hurts your ego or steps on your pride just a little bit, now you're so upset, right? You can't take what that person is trying to communicate to you because you're so stuck on your feelings being hurt. Humility in that situation, humility in those moments when you are receiving the feedback, right? It allows you to actually hear what's being said. Like I was able to take the root of what the criticism was, what the person was saying, and apply that. Forget everything else, right? Apply what the root of the criticism was, which is, hey, in these areas when you're working under pressure, here's what you can work on. When you have to handle things and they're on a time crunch or people are looking to you for things or whatever it is, right? Here's what you can work on to be better. You got the situation handled. That's good, right? But there are still some other things that you can work on in that arena. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And again, resisting the pride, taking the meat and leaving the bones, right? Just taking what I need from that and leaving everything else. Because everything else is not going to be perfect, whatever the case is. But the core of the matter is, hey, here's what you need to work on. Fine, I'll take that. The next thing that I kind of talked about earlier, which is just like being honest with myself. Self-awareness is the key to success. It's the key to life, honestly. Being aware of how I respond under pressure allowed me to agree with what the criticism was. I do not work the best under pressure. Or when I do work under pressure, I get cranky. I get very direct. My energy shifts. My tone with people is very short and directive, right? I'm not smiling. I'm not happy-go-lucky. I'm in a slight panic, right? My mind is slightly starting to go into overdrive. So in order to keep myself at bay, I keep my face, I keep my expressions, my words, everything short. And I know that about myself. Now, whether I decide to fix it or not, once it's been called out and noticed, is up to me. And so that's another thing. If you agree with what the person is saying, despite how they said it, despite how you feel about it, then, that's probably what it is, right? Like, you get into an argument with 10 people, it's like, it's no longer their fault. All 10 people weren't wrong. You were wrong. It's the same concept here. You agree with something, even in the slightest, if you can hear the criticism and say, okay, I can see that. Then there it is. There's your answer, right? That's the area that you do not work the best in, and that is okay. And it brings me to my next point, is now like saying thank you and applying it, right? Like somebody's pouring into you, somebody's giving you the effort, the time, their energy to just say, hey, okay, we noticed this. Here's what you can work on. Thank you, right? Thank you for even taking the time to notice me and to notice something that I may not be aware of and pointing it out to me. Thank you. It's as simple as that. But again, once our pride and our ego and our feelings and all those things get involved, right? It's hard to see that part. It's hard to acknowledge the good in it, right? There's always going to be a sense of criticism, critique, feedback, constructive feedback, right? Constructive criticism. Everything said to you during that time will not be perfect. Every tone won't be perfect. Some things are going to be a little disrespectful. Some things are going to be, set out of context. That's just the name of the game, right? And that's when your ability to, again, take the meat and leave the bones. Take what they said, take what the critique is, understand that, okay, you may have a point. Like, you may have a point. Now, how you said it, what you said it around, the context, all that may be terribly wrong. And if you have the ability or the need to address that part, then do so, right? But in my case specifically, I wasn't more so worried about all of that. Like I wasn't worried about, anybody's intentions, right? Everybody doesn't have the most pure intentions, but what I do recognize and what I want you guys to know is that most of the time, Your bosses, your superiors, the people that you work with, even if you have your own business or, you're working with a client or whatever the case is, most of the time people are trying to help you more than they're trying to hurt you, right? Most of the time people just want you to know about yourself because they're seeing you from an outside perspective. They're not you, right? So they're on the outside looking in. And sometimes they just want you to know. Now, of course, everybody does not have the purest intentions. So things will get said. Sometimes people are just mad, jealous, X, Y, and Z, right? So you use your discernment with that. I just don't want us to throw away the growth because the delivery wasn't perfect, right? Don't throw away the opportunity to grow and to learn something about yourself just because somebody said it in a way that made you uncomfortable. That's a little middle school, right? We're kind of growing past that part. And I don't want you to miss the next thing for you because you can't submit your old ways and your old habits and replace them with new ones, right? And so, yeah, I think in closing, if you want to succeed in anything, I don't care if it's work, a marriage, raising children, life in general, being a teacher, being a nurse, whatever it is that you're wanting to succeed or you wanting to see growth in, it is not going to come without feedback. Feedback is a part of all of that. Critique and criticism is what is needed to be successful in every area of your life. Every successful person is used to a pivot. They're used to changing. They're used to hearing feedback, applying it, and changing it. That's literally the way of life, right? I think the worst type of person that you can be is someone who is unteachable. Someone who's too smart for their own good. You go into a place and you think that you just got it all under control and you know everything and nobody can tell you anything. That's the worst type of person. It's the worst type of employee. It's the worst type of wife. It's the worst type of husband. It's the worst type of child. It's the absolute worst when you cannot be coached, when you cannot receive criticism, receive feedback without getting offended. And so, like I said, use your discernment, use your discernment when people tell you things, but not everything said to you will feel good. It's not meant to make you feel good all the time, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. So yeah, I just thought I'd share my experience because I went through a little roller coaster just in the matter of a few minutes. It's a matter of being on the phone. Am I gonna take this and grow from it, or am I gonna invalidate it with all of my logic and my thought processes and, become that unteachable person, right? And so, yeah, I decided to grow and to take that and to say, you know what? Okay, you're right. You're right. All the other things around it, no, maybe not. But what was actually said, what was trying to be communicated, I understood it and I was able to apply it, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm going to be smiling rainbows, lollipops next time I get frustrated, but it does mean that I'm aware of it. It means that I'm conscious of it. It means that I can work to fix it in real time. So, yeah, it's kind of all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys are enjoying this. This has been an amazing journey so far, and I just love everything that we're doing together. So, yeah. Till next time, bye.